You're watching a More Beautiful World podcast with Susan Renee, a channel for those of you with open minds and courageous hearts who are looking for guidance on your trauma healing and personal transformation journeys. Here, I share with you the powers of intentional plant medicine use, along with other holistic therapies and spiritual guidance to guide you on your path forward. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned in working with these sacred plant medicines on my own journey, including the knowing that what we do to heal ourselves, we do to heal the whole collective. Join me as I share my experiences, knowledge, and wisdom to guide your trauma healing so you can transform your life, and so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A More Beautiful World. And in today's episode, I am taking you through my third weekend journey with grandmother ayahuasca. With that, this journey back to a ceremonial sit with grandmother was long awaited for me and happened over 15 months after my previous sit with the medicine. And as always, this ceremony found me in divine timing and opened me up to receive many blessings, messages, and divine guidance on my healing and transformation journey. So today, I will be taking you through part one of this three-part series, covering what surfaced for healing in the ceremony preparation, and also the intentions I set for ceremony. And all of this is what really led to the kickoff of a beautiful retreat experience. So if you are ready to learn more about this beautiful plant medicine, ayahuasca, and what working with this medicine could look like for you on your healing journey, then this episode is for you. First off, as I have done in my recent Medicine Journey podcast, I am dedicating this episode to my dear brother Parker, who recently left his human body and transitioned to the other side. Were it not for Parker, this episode and my experience and healing in this ayahuasca retreat would not have been possible. Parker was on a mission, in his life to raise the consciousness of humanity and was dedicated to his shamanic medicine path. And he really has been an instrumental person on my own personal healing and my own medicine journey. So this retreat experience that I'll be talking about today happened just days after Parker left this world and transitioned back into the spirit world. And his transition and the timing of it highly influenced my ceremony and journey with this medicine in this retreat experience. So with that, these episodes are for you, Parker, para el bien de todos. And as always on my medicine shares, I have a quick disclaimer before we dive in. I am only here to share my experience with this medicine, and I want to make the disclaimer that I do not assume any liability for the application of any of the information contained in this podcast. I am presenting this information solely to further the quest for a fuller understanding of the human experience and how I believe we can use these medicines to make this a more beautiful world for us all. With that, I am not recommending you go out and use this medicine without some deep thought and deep consideration and really ensuring that it is in alignment with where you are at on your healing and your transformation journey. Remember, what we do for one, we do for us all. And it is always my intention in sharing these experiences with you and the medicine that I received, that the downloads and the messages reach each of you in your own divine timing and really help to guide you on your healing and your transformation journey, just as they have done for me. Okay, so let's begin. Right? Because for those of you who have been, regular listeners and following me throughout this year, and 2022 really was a hell of a year for me. with 2 cross-country moves and 4 moves in general, all inside of 11 months, the ending of a long-term relationship, all the trauma and the PTSD that came with that, it really has been one of the most transformational years I have ever experienced. And in reflecting back as I was preparing for this podcast, I have gone through several death and rebirth processes this year. Um, so you will be hearing this at the beginning of 2023, but I am recording this right at the end of 2022, and it has been a year. And in many ways, as I look back on the year, I really do feel like I am an entirely different person than who I was at the beginning of the year. And a big part of that is because of my medicine journey and the retreats that I have attended this year. So today we're going to be talking about my first ayahuasca retreat of the year, but my third retreat overall in my medicine journey. And I really want to share with you about how I got connected into this ceremony, how divine timing really just set me up so perfectly for the healing that I needed to receive. And I'll also take you through a bit of my year and how I really got set up for the ceremony, some of the events that transpired leading up to the ceremony, and really how all of that greatly influenced, my experiences during the retreat weekend, but also, what showed up, in preparation and in needing to be healed for the ceremony weekend. And I want to start with when I was called to sit back with grandmother ayahuasca. Because it really was at the beginning of 2022 that I had been called back into ceremony with grandmother. And I moved to Arkansas, as many of you know, at the beginning of 2022. So getting to a ceremony, being in this little small town in Arkansas, it was really difficult to figure out logistics to get to a ceremony space. So even though the medicine had called me at the beginning of the year, there was a retreat I wanted to do in February, but I couldn't make it. Again, logistics just didn't work out. And then I wanted to go in June, but the timing, again, was not right for me for an ayahuasca sit, because that's when I was fleeing my situation in Arkansas, moving, landing in Denver. So life was way too in flux at that point to attend the June ceremony that I wanted to go to. And then I found a sit in August that I was super eager to attend, and I even signed up for, but it ended up conflicting with my annual trip back to Michigan. And literally, it was every ceremony that I was like, yes, I want to do it. The logistics were just a mess. And when I really felt into it, none of it was going to work. So I had to keep saying, no, this isn't going to work. It's not the right time. And there was just always something in the way, which again, it ended up being in divine timing, but it was difficult, throughout this year being called into ceremony, really wanting to go into ceremony, and not being able to find, the right ceremony, the one that was aligning in divine timing. And so I remember it was back in September. I was in my third new place, living in 9 months, and I was trying to get settled in, and I'm like doing some cleaning, and I have my music playing, and I hear an email come through. And so I quick look at my phone, and it is for some ceremony work in October. And I was so in, because for once and the whole crazy year, the logistics lined up just perfectly. And within 24 hours of receiving that email, I paid my deposit, locked in my spot, and it was game on. Like, I was so ready to sit in ceremony. Now, you guys know, if you've been listening to the podcast, I did have a ceremony sit, with Wachuma back in April. But again, there was something about sitting with grandmother ayahuasca that I was very, very eager to do. And so, as I've mentioned in some of my previous plant medicine podcasts as well, the moment that you say yes to the medicine and the moment you sign up for a ceremony, that is when the medicine starts to work and the journey begins. And in ceremony prep, so again, this was probably early September, maybe even end of August. So it was around that time. I say yes to ceremony and I start getting triggered left and right. And it was really uncanny. Well, not that uncanny because I know this stuff happens, but all of this stuff started showing up in my life that was really showing me how many places I was still unhappy with where I was at in life and how I had been continuing to settle for less than I deserved in life. And I remember, in ceremony prep, as I was feeling into like, what are my intentions and what do I really want to heal in the ceremony? I wanted so badly to break through my old patterns and really let go of the shame, that I had been feeling, and the shame of like not feeling successful enough, not feeling, worthy of love, just overall that feeling of not being enough and not deserving. And a lot of these triggers were coming up and showing me how I still had a lot of those feelings showing up for me, both in my work life and also my romantic life, two areas that I felt like I wasn't really having a lot of success in at the time, as I was in ceremony prep. So again, between kind of like end of August, early September and ceremony, which was in early October, I was dealing with a lot of mild depression and I hadn't dealt with depression in a while. So it was kind of a unique experience for me. I do have a history of depression, as many of you already know, and some severe depression at that. But this was very mild. This was like a little undercurrent of depression that I was noticing, throughout every day. Though I was still able to work, I was functioning. It was all okay. But I know over the summer I had brought cannabis, back into my life a little bit. I was back in Denver, and living in Denver. And there was just a little more cannabis that had come into my life. And so I know part of my ceremony prep and letting go of cannabis and cutting out caffeine, that was, bringing some of the things to surface for me that needed to be healed. And one of those things is in the new living situation I had just moved into, and living with a roommate, I was feeling really unsafe in that living situation. And not that I was going to be harmed or anything. It was not even close to that, but it was really showing me how I felt very unsafe to communicate and unsafe to be my authentic self around someone who was an addict. And I really felt like, in that space, I was swirling a lot in this mild depression, really feeling a lot of aloneness, and feeling so alone. I had a lot of this deep-seated shame coming up about where I was at in my life and where I was at in my business. And I also had a lot of anger showing up. And the anger was like self-anger. It was like anger toward myself about like, how could you let us get here in life? And how could this year have been such a hot mess? So all of that, as it's coming up during these few weeks in ceremony prep, I really was just trying to be the observer and just noticing it and allowing that awareness there, seeing that there are things that need to be healed and really allowing, some space to be gentle with myself. And it wasn't easy because, as we all pretty much have, that inner critic, once it starts, going, it can be hard to stop the inner critic from really running amok in our minds. And so I was pulling all my levers, that I know how to do with self-care and with being gentle with myself and with moving, some of the emotions. I was going out into nature a lot, doing a lot of nature walks through the nature preserve. I was going to the parks and getting in some earthing and grounding, getting in some sunshine on the days I could. I was doing a lot of yoga in ceremony prep, really trying again to like move the emotions, a lot of Kundalini yoga, a lot of breath work. And again, I was like pulling all of the levers to really, move through these emotions that were coming up. But still, through all of that, there was this underlying mild depression in this ceremony preparation. And one thing that had really been a focus my whole year, which ends up being a very big theme in ceremony, just so you know what we'll be talking about maybe in the next 2 episodes. But a big theme in 2022, since the ending of my, longer term relationship back in February of 2022, I was really focused on calling in my sacred partner. And as I was even reading my journal entries and preparing for this recording and making sure I capture the fullness of my experience, it has been amazing to look back at how much of my energy and intention from 2022 had been around, really opening up and creating the space to connect to my sacred partner. I have more to come on that in parts 2 and 3 of this medicine series, and even in future series, because I have a whole nother medicine journey to talk to you about with sacred partnership. But for the purpose of this podcast, the desire for it and knowing that it was there and it had been with me through the whole year, it really had me taking a look at, in hindsight, in all the ways in which up to that point in which I had settled in my life and really settled in relationships and, just accepted so much less than what I actually deserved because of not feeling worthy enough. And I started to see why, why that was happening and how I still wasn't fully tapped into my own worth and again, knowing what I deserved. And that was why, I wasn't where I wanted to be in my life as far as a romantic partnership. So there was a lot of that clarity coming in, a lot of knowing of like where I was at and what needed to be healed. So I have all of that going on. And then the Monday before ceremony, so ceremony started on a Friday, but I was actually leaving on a Tuesday because I was spending some time in Phoenix before I left for ceremony. So on Monday before ceremony, I have this pretty strange experience. And again, it's all in the name of ceremony prep and letting the medicine journey begin, because I had said yes to the journey. I was in the shower, and earlier in 2022, it was probably around like April or May, there was someone in my life that I was very attracted to. And we had been talking and like thinking about, maybe starting a relationship, just kind of getting to know each other more. And I was really encouraged by that connection, really eager for that connection because I had this energy of wanting, my sacred partner to come in my life. And all of a sudden, like toward like the middle to end of May, I got ghosted and he just totally disappeared. And when that happened, it was very difficult for me. And I went through my own process, of that abandonment. But I also shut it down and like didn't feel that painfully. So as I'm preparing for ceremony, it's Monday morning before ceremony. I'm taking a shower. And I was not feeling super great that morning. I knew like the depression was kind of there. There was something there. And all of a sudden I'm in the shower and all of this grief just came up and I kind of just lost my shit in the shower and I was crying and I like fell down onto the shower floor and the shower is like, going over me and I am just like crying and like kind of hyperventilating a little bit and just had this super depressing episode. And I realized, and this man, came up, and I realized how the loss of him and how he just abandoned me, without saying anything, without giving me an explanation, that abandonment wound and that grief of that loss of that connection was still inside of me, and it had to come out. And, I recognized just how much grief of all the losses in my life were there, and how there was a lot that I hadn't processed and I had just like really stuffed down in order to continue to survive. So for some reason, this man, which I barely had any relationship with, again, it was just like more hope, I think, than anything, hope in finding that divine, connection and that sacred partnership. But then he ghosted me. And so anyway, this loss comes up. And so the whole day I'm just a hot mess and I'm really struggling. And I'm like, okay, this is probably where that mild depression has been coming from. So on that very same day, later that afternoon, so I'm like trying to get my shit together, trying to get through some work, I find out that my dad's cancer is coming back and his PSA levels were on the rise. And that was just another kick in the gut that day. It's really difficult news, I think, to hear when any of your loved ones, right, have cancer and are battling with that. And it's been a couple of hard years for him. And I know how difficult the journey has been for him. And I know how much anxiety it causes him to get that news. So that just kicked me down another notch on that day. And then, so I'm super sad, right? On this day, I'm grieving, I'm having this pretty depressed day. And then that night, that's when one of my good friends called me up and let me know the news that our friend Parker had been in a severe accident and he was on life support with a broken spine. And that was when I just lost it. I fell to the floor. I started crying. I couldn't handle the pain anymore. And all of this, is happening like the day before I leave for my retreat. So I was leaving the next morning. I still had to pack. I still had to eat. I still had to clean, and I really had no idea if I was even going to be able to make it. It was just a shit show. So, I was on the phone with my friend for a while talking about Parker and spent a lot of time in prayer and meditation that night, praying for Parker's healing, praying for his spine to be healed and just really putting a lot of faith in the process, knowing I was going into ceremony, knowing I would be able to do deeper levels of prayer work. But I was in a rough space leaving for Phoenix that next morning. And, I went to Phoenix. I fly to Phoenix the next morning. I make it on the flight. I get my bags packed. Like I get out of Denver, get down to Phoenix. And my first stop in Phoenix and visiting a friend, I get the news that Parker had passed. And that pretty much made my whole time in Phoenix an absolute blur. So I don't really have much to say about the time in Phoenix, except probably the most important thing that transpired in getting ready for the ayahuasca retreat weekend. I did carve out a day in my schedule to get up to Sedona, which was supposed to be like a joyful, beautiful healing day, getting ready, clearing my energy for ceremony. But it ended up being just as important for my ceremony preparation. And it really helped me, I think, get ready to receive the full experience of the medicine, with ayahuasca in my retreat weekend. And so it was like sometime that week, I'm in Phoenix. I think it was the Wednesday. I was there. I go up to Sedona and I was an absolute hot mess that morning. Again, Parker had just passed and I was crying. I'm in a lot of pain. And I just, from everything that had been transpiring, I had this deep chasm of sadness that had just opened up inside of me. And I felt so raw, so vulnerable. I was feeling all of this grief, all of this PTSD, from when I lost my best friend Lily, in a tragic car accident on my 18th birthday. And Parker's tragic passing like really triggered that PTSD of losing her. And so I was just all sorts of pain, grief, crying, hot mess experience. And I called one of my spiritual mentors that morning on my way to Sedona because I just needed some guidance. I wasn't really sure how to move through it all. And so I called my spiritual mentor, Diane, who I lovingly refer to as Di. And she advised me on a lot of things that morning that, again, were instrumental in getting me ready for ceremony that weekend. And she really advised me that it was time for me to let my guard down and to stop carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders and to stop being the one who was always caring for others and to really allow myself to receive healing and allow myself to receive support. And we had this beautiful conversation about how you cannot give fully if you are not receiving, which ended up being a big theme in ceremony, which I'll tell you more about. But she advised me on that day, to get up into Sedona, get up into the beautiful healing red rocks, and to do some writing, because I had been really reluctant to journal at that point because I didn't want to feel the pain. And she advised me to really lean into the discomfort, lean into the pain, feel it fully so I could make it through to the other side, to open to receive support. And she also kind of helped me construct a ritual and a little ceremony to honor my friend Parker, to honor my friend Lily, and to even honor myself, and all the things that had been showing up. So I went down. I drive up to Sedona. I get down to my favorite spot at Oak Creek, and I'm prepared now after my conversation with Diane. And I have this whole ritual and ceremony that I want to do, to honor Parker, to honor Lily, to honor myself. And prior to performing this little ritual and ceremony, I wrote out a journal entry. And I think I am going to read the journal entry because I feel it gives you a clear picture to really what was showing up for me and what energy space I was going into ceremony with, and really what needed to be looked at, and healed in the ceremony. So this is my entry from up in Sedona prior to doing my little ritual for Parker. So I just have to do the thing and write, though it's hard for me to do. I have so much pain and I really don't want to look at it, though I know I cannot spiritually bypass this. I feel devastated with losing Parker, and it's finding me in divine timing as I realize how much grief I've been carrying around inside of me for years now. I know and I trust it's all coming up to be healed. It's just so fucking uncomfortable, and I don't want to feel this pain. It hurts to feel loss, and I've lost so much in my life, and it just fucking hurts. I'm so tired of losing and being alone, and I'm tired of feeling so guarded all the time and like I always have to be so strong. I'm tired of carrying around all of these burdens and all of the grief around with me, and I am ready to let it all go. Thank God for Sedona, who is holding me in her divine healing energy right now and helping me process. Thank God for Di this morning, who supported me as I moved into this deep chasm of sadness. And thank God for my awareness and my ability to see and my ability to ask for help, because I need help. I need healing, and I need to allow myself to be supported and guided and loved. I need to let go of this grief and this self-anger for not having my sacred partner yet in my life. And I need to release the grief of leaving Phoenix, leaving my marriage, leaving Vanguard, and I need to let it all go and take my power back. This pain runs deep, and I see all of the connection points within me. I see where it is showing up in my physical body, and I see how the loss of Parker is bringing up all of this for healing. And it's all being seen right now to be cleared and to be healed. I'm ready to create space, and I'm ready to allow the blessings of divine abundance, love, wealth, and even vulnerability to come in. Aho and amen. So that is the energy that I went into ceremony with. That was, that journal entry was about 36 hours prior to heading into retreat space. And I was just dealing with so much grief and so much pain, and also the desire to heal, and to let it go and to feel it fully and to move through it. And really this desire to open up to receive healing, to let go of this need of having to be the strong one and to be able to be soft, right? And to be vulnerable and to receive healing. And I felt ready. The ceremony space that I go into is so sacred and so full of loving, kind, amazing humans who could support me and could help me, in this grieving process and in this healing process. So I really felt ready for the opening and the allowing, of others to come in and help and support me. So with that, as I finish up this episode, I head out to ceremony, and I'm just really feeling into what the intentions are, as I'm going out. And really my intentions first and foremost were to receive healing, right? Again, so often in ceremony, I would have really great ceremonies and I'd hold space for others. I'd be sending love and light and Reiki energy healing and, connecting with people in conversation and offering advice. And this time, I knew I was the one who needed to receive, and I needed to allow myself to receive from others. I just knew that this was absolutely necessary. So I went in with that intention of really allowing my heart to stay open and allowing myself to receive. And I also went in with the intentions of letting go of what no longer serves me. I think that's always part of my intention in medicine ceremony, but really so I can be of my highest expression, right? And be of better service to you all. And that really connected with me, as I was talking to Di about, I want to give, I want to be of service. And in order to do that, we also need to receive, right? So those were my general intentions. And I'll be honest, I was definitely nervous as I was driving out to ceremony, because of all the grief, of all the pain, that I was in, everything that had transpired throughout the week, the loss of Parker, the PTSD triggers of losing my friend, all of this old grief that was showing up. I was really concerned at how that was all going to unfold for me in ceremony. Kind of felt like it might be a difficult couple of nights ahead. But the strength that I had, I mustered up the strength that I had, and I went in knowing something that Parker reflected back to me. And he said, "You have all the essentials, hermana. You have all the essentials to do the work." And I reminded myself of that going into first night of ceremony, and really always, I went in with gratitude for the opportunity to experience the medicine and, to be someone who is honored enough to sit, in these medicine circles and really just with that deep knowing, right, that we are all connected and that we are all divine and that what we do for one, we do for all. So I know as I work on my healing, it facilitates your healing. And that always keeps me going. So a lot came up prior to this ceremony. And let me tell you, it unfolded beautifully. in the retreat weekend and in integration, some of the best things I could have asked for came into my life. So more to come on that, because that's it for this part one of the series, because it takes you right up to my ceremony night. And remember, in the next episode, I'm going to talk to you about my experience being in the medicine over the next few nights on this third ayahuasca retreat weekend that I experienced. And then I'm going to finish off in part 3 of the series with all of the lessons and the blessings that came in during integration, along with all of the actions that I took during the integration, because I got some fierce energy in me and really started to do some like kicking ass and taking names. So I'll be eager to share that with you, because it has been quite the journey over these last just couple of months. And okay, tribe, let's remember this is all about making the world a more beautiful place. And that begins with you. Because as you better yourself and you move through your own healing and your own transformation journey, you are beautifying our world. I do hope you found this episode helpful and maybe even a bit entertaining. And as always, I appreciate you being on your healing journey with me. As always, if you need support as you're healing the anxiety, you're healing the PTSD, healing that trauma, or even if you are preparing for or integrating a plant medicine journey, make sure you grab your free clarity call with me below, because I would be honored to guide you on your healing and your transformation. And that is all for today, my dear sweet tribe. Until next time, much love to you all. Hey tribe, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button below and then click subscribe so you catch future episodes. And remember, I've got lots of free resources for you to learn about the powers of intentional plant medicine use in order to support your trauma healing and personal transformation journey. So make sure you check them out in the description below and help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.